Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S back with the fourth and final part of, I hope I put the right title in by the way, the fourth and final part of my plans to unify Africa and Asia together through Egypt, symbolically, because they are a transcontinental country, the only transcontinental country, I believe, between Africa and Asia, apparently, according to Google anyway. So this one is about... Sorry, just trying to sit comfortably. This one is, I don't know why it always does that thing with the clock. So I hope it's recording properly. For some reason, the live clock thing went backwards. I don't know why it often does that. But anyway, this one is about what I hope I will have achieved in the future. So I was going to go for my shower first and then do this, but I thought while I've got the house to myself, I will record this first. I did try and get the cats in the thumbnail as I normally do, but it's really difficult. A lot of time some of the cats, or two of the cats, will go onto my lap and all that, but I really wish they would do that when I'm uploading the video, because they could be in part of the video. But I'm hoping to get a new mobile. I've been hoping since the new year, really, to get a new mobile where I can record the cats, because I think they make some pretty cool videos. I think they're really cute. But anyway, especially one of them is really photogenic, I think. Anyway, on to the topic at hand. These are ideas, pointers, thoughts, or whatever you call them, number 31 to 40. And as I say, I hope to look into what I hope I will have achieved in the future. So I hope my ideas will benefit African and Asian nations as much as possible. So here goes. So number 31. On that note, I hope that also... although I mainly hope for these videos to focus, or for these 4 videos, including this one and the 3 before it, I hope that, the focus was mainly on, and is mainly on, the African and Asian nations, and how I hope for all possible African and Asian nations and citizens to benefit, but also they could, through that, look at what other parts of the world they want to network with and trade with, like, for instance, Latin America, South America, North America, and whatnot. So I hope they'll be able to then be in a stronger position, actually, to trade with the rest of the world, and especially look at what nations they have in common, what nations have things in common with them, like republics and that kind of thing. Number 32, as I mentioned before, hopefully they will learn from each other, and hopefully, as I say, for this video, I want to look at what I hope they would have achieved in the future. As I say, I hope my ideas would have benefited them, and I hope somehow I'll be able to promote these ideas. And people from Africa and Asia will be encouraged to implement these ideas, most importantly, and hopefully, again, it'll be a mutual benefit for African and Asian nations. So hopefully in the future they will have learned a lot from each other, and continue to learn a lot from and about each other, and work together on things like medicine, science, generally STEM, science, tech, engineering, and maths, business, and all sorts of things, how to trade, and teach each other about business, including maybe teach young people from Africa and Asia about business. I'm a great believer that the younger you start, the better. Number 33, hopefully they'll promote libertarianism. I really hope to find ways to promote libertarianism across Africa and Asia. If and when I remember and get the energy to do so, I hope to copy and paste the link about libertarianism from Google, possibly under this video or under one of the videos I made on this on these topics, so that people from Africa can learn about libertarianism, human rights, and things like that. And I hope they will have as much freedom as possible. And for me, freedom is being able to do things that other people might not agree with, and to allow freedom is to allow people to do things you might not agree with. So, for instance, I talked before about LGBTQ and all that kind of thing. Some people call them the alphabet community, and I think you should have the freedom of speech and freedom of expression that many people in the West complain that is being eroded. I think those should be enabled, Asia and Africa and all over the world, really, so people can be able to say pretty much what they want. I mean, there's some limits, I suppose, within reason, but I think people should have as many freedoms of speech and expression in general as possible. I hope all that made sense. As if you have any questions, please feel free funny enough, on that note, too far away. Number 34, I hope that peace will be made across Asia and Africa and will last for as long as possible, a lasting peace. And again, I mentioned this in previous parts, but just going through those, I hope that we'll have achieved those in the future, basically. So diplomacy, negotiations, and that kind of thing. I can't think of what word I'm looking for. I think the simple way to put it is diplomacy, and people being out. I think part of that should be about people discussing what they want to see and nations discussing what they want to see. Like, so China can discuss with India their goals and vice versa, and they can look at how to make peace between each other and how they can cooperate. And again, I talked about like disputed territories. They could use those to actually network together rather than against each other, rather than work against each other. Number 35, I hope they'll be able to support as many and as much Asian and African aspiration between individuals and nations as possible. So individual citizens and like the politicians, as I talked before about, like for instance, Modi's dream for India to be a well, I think it is already a multi-trillion, but to be a $10 trillion economy by 2030, and maybe by working together they can even exceed expectations. I often think that with if they invest in people with neurodiversity, dyslexia, ADHD, autism, and whatnot, and see the strengths of such individuals, I think that they will see that though us neurodiverse people, we neurodiverse people might not be the best academically, we can be good in other areas, and in fact, the fact that they're quite rare areas to work on, rare strengths and all that, in some ways might make them even better. And the fact that we can think outside of the box and things like that, I think could actually could be worth quite a lot to benefit those nations. So I often think like Asian and African nations, especially Asian nations, can be and African nations as well, but especially probably Asian nations in particular, maybe can be very academic, so that if you're not good academically, they dismiss you kind of. Whereas I think neurodiverse people have a lot to offer, and organisations like Made by Dyslexia and the Dyslexic Advantage show that. And I think it'd be cool on that note if organisations like them and the Yale Centre for Dyslexia and Creativity and others are invited to African and Asian nations, especially to Egypt. They can talk about the positive sides and what they've learned and things like that. For instance, 20% of self-made millionaires in the UK are apparently dyslexic, and in America it's 35%. So that's a talent maybe Asian and African nations are missing out on by only looking at what you can do academically. And also there's like the case for investing in dyslexia, the value of dyslexia and things like that. So I hope Asian and African nations learn about that, because I think they are wasted time. So I think Asian and African nations could grow even faster, including China and India, if they utilised the strengths of neurodiverse people. But that's my opinion. Please feel free as ever to disagree if you wish. Or maybe a lot of people wouldn't have known that, but hopefully that would inspire you to do your own research on that, and you might be surprised to see what you see and hear what you hear. Number 36, I hope in the future that as many Asians and Africans as possible will support Italian football and Celtic, and I hope that Italian football and Celtic obviously will improve relations with African and Asian nations and be able to promote and market themselves. In Italian football's case, I know I'm repeating a lot of ideas that I talked before about, but I hope these sort of things will be achieved in the future and continue to be worked upon with momentum. And I hope Serie A, or Italian football generally, does a lot to tackle racism and prejudice and improve relations with the rest of the world, including parts of Africa and Asia, and maybe gets to play football there and like train together towards a mutual benefit, which I hope again will benefit Italian football and Celtic as well as Africa and Asia. Number 37, as a Celtic as well. Number 38, I hope there'll be as much freedom as possible, and Asians and Africans will talk about what freedom they wish to see and what freedoms they believe their nations should give them. And again, I hope to promote libertarianism, and Asians and Africans talk about freedom and love freedom and that kind of thing. Number 39, again, I hope that people from Africa and Asia as soon as possible and into the future will learn about neurodiversity and also disability rights generally, So people with mental, physical, and learning disabilities will be empowered and also show what they can contribute. So I think it'd be cool if they looked at people's strengths instead of their weaknesses. So even let's say if you're blind, you might be good at something else. Even obviously you can't see. If you're in a wheelchair, you might be good at something else. Although obviously, unfortunately, you can't walk. Which are two things I appreciate and sometimes take for granted. But I try to appreciate those things as much as possible. But obviously, there are still things you can do. If you're dyslexic, you might not be able to read or write very well, or do well academically, but you might do well in other areas like business, creativity, and things like that. So I hope people from Africa and Asia will learn about things like that. Like, for instance, the famous dyslexic success stories, I think, as well as like ADHD. So, like the founder of JetBlue Airlines has got both dyslexia and ADHD. Richard Branson, Jamie Oliver, Damon John, Kevin O'Leary, and many others have dyslexia, and many also have ADHD and have done really well. So I hope people from Asia will learn about those sorts of things. And number 40, again, as I mentioned in part 3, point number 30, I have to think like dirty ideas for number 30 and naughty ideas for number 40, symbolically, or as they rhyme, basically. But I thought, as people who I know, like friends and family, about this, I feel a bit shy to discuss those sorts of confessions and things. And also, as I might have children watching the videos, I'm going to try and keep it clean. Anyway, as ever, please let me know what you think about my waffling, and any ideas and suggestions you have on what would benefit Africa and Asia will be welcome. Would be very welcome even in the comment section. I don't know why when I come into these videos I struggle to get my words out, but we will stutter to victory. Anyway, I am out. Peace and love.